Just got to say up front, quickly discovered after arriving that it's pronounced Zadar, and not, as I and many English speakers might have assumed, Zadar! So, in a post-Thronesy world, everyone knows about Dubrovnik now. Split is the second largest city in Croatia and a jumping off point to all of these major islands, so it's modestly well known. Pula, which we looked at last episode, is not as well known to outsiders, but it has the amphitheatre and all the other Roman monuments to pique people's interest, and to a lesser extent the festivals that are held there as well. But in this mid-section here, you've got two major cities that don't quite get the same level of attention. I mean, Zadar is one of the 4 cities along the Croatian Adriatic with international airports, low-angle flag shot, but good luck finding anyone in the UK at least who can tell you anything at all about it. Now, I don't usually get into the exact timings of all the trips on the channel. For most of you, you don't know us personally, so it's just not all that interesting, and it also allows us to quietly paper over how long it takes to get some of these episodes finished. However, it is significant in this case that the next lot of episodes all took place as part of a 10-day trip to explore as much of the Dalmatian coast as we could. And to save any confusion, it was 2 years earlier than the Pula episode last time. Okay? Right. So we were flying to Zadar to start the trip, and on this occasion in specific, it couldn't help but feel damn near like magic that having woken up early in the UK and hopped on the plane, by the time 10:30 came around, after a rapid flight barely scraping 2 hours, we were sat by the clear blue waters of the Adriatic. This is Zadar from above. You can see the peninsula with the old town here, which is where most exciting bits are. You can also see how it's shielded from the open sea by a series of island chains. Quick geography supplement here. The Dalmatian coast doesn't stop where the mainland ends, but parallel lines of island chains extend further into the sea. A lot of these are pretty much mountains or ridgelines that just happen to be detached from the land by saltwater channels. It creates these nice sheltered coastlines and natural harbours all along the stretch of the Croatian Adriatic. So what's in Zadar? Well, the town is a fortified Venetian stronghold. In fact, the Venetian defences are so impressive they were included on the UNESCO inscription, more on that in a bit. But the town goes way back before that with ancient churches and some significant Roman history on show as well. So it was pretty much midday and over 30 degrees in the shade, so we had a bit of a slow start. Taking a drink in a cafe overlooking the main open square where the ruins of the Roman Forum are visible. Now, something I'd mentioned in the previous episode, when in Croatia, I'd grown rather fond of ojusko, which is so commonly available it can also be plumbed into houses from a citywide pipeline. I have a suspicion it's a case of when you're on holiday in a hot country, full of endorphins, pretty much anything you're handed tastes like your new favourite thing. You're so hyped on positivity. Ojusko is probably the local equivalent of carling. I think it might be total trash, but because it reminds you of the halcyon days of baking under the Croatian sun, you just don't even notice. So after knocking back a frosty one of those in the shade, we opted to climb the Venetian bell tower to get a better aerial view of the city. It was 15 kuna in, which is just over 150, which is a freaking steal. And it's even open after dark. And the views, yeah, it's amazing. You can see the outlines of the Roman buildings down there. You can see the modern city as it stretches off to the south and east with the mountains in the distance. Plus, as well as the spires of the many churches through the town, the best view is of course off the Church of St. Donatus next door. And yes, after that, the cool interior of St. Donatus was welcome on the scorching day when we had all our luggage on our back still. Only a couple of quid in, and definitely worth a quick glance. Architecture from the 800s is pretty rare in Europe, particularly as you go further west. So little was being built in stone. I mean, in the UK, virtually everything was still wood and thatch, so yeah, that's why architecture from this time is so significant. We were sort of killing time before we could check into our Airbnb and drop those bags, so we wandered lazily through the streets, eventually heading just 5 minutes outside the old city to a block of flats painted purple, probably to conceal the grey concrete, and this was our accommodation, which, for only 30 quid, was pretty great. It was airy and clean. It stems mostly from the need to do these trips as inexpensively as possible, but I'm still amazed what you can get for downwards of 30 quid if you search. So Jen was taking a nap to keep out of the heat, but I decided to go take a bit more of a wander round. The rest of the town opposite the side of the water to the old city is a mix of Yugoslav concrete and pristine modernity. The waterfront is definitely very nice. I was looking at the bridge that separates this bay from the rest of the channel and wondering how those boats managed to fit under that bridge. Okay, the answer appears self-evident, but there we go. Okay, a bit more on the old town. The parts of the defensive wall that still stand are incorporated under the UNESCO inscription of the Venetian works of defence between the 16th and 17th centuries. Weird thing is, the whole eastern Mediterranean is filled with Venetian works of defence between the 16th and 17th centuries. As far as Zadar goes, one of the most striking elements is this gate at the southern entrance to the city. The walls themselves are extensive, but somewhat less striking, though it did feel a bit like it was a slightly shrunken version of Valletta at times. The town is also full of churches. There's a lot of history on every corner, even though there's some rather jarring modern architecture that intrudes to the space here and there. Truthfully, it's fortunate that any of the historical city survives, as it was heavily bombed by the Allies while it was under the occupation of the Axis during World War II. Now, I could give you a more detailed breakdown of all the different historical portions of the city, but in this episode at least, that's probably not what you're here for. You're better off just going to see it all for yourselves, and we'll save the train spotting for the Venetian series. After a few laps and linking back up with Jen, it was close to dinner time, and by the way, this is why I don't labour the food we eat in these videos. We were really having to do this trip inexpensively, but gotta say, for junk food to eat by the water, you could do a lot worse than this place. So took a quick glance at the water organ. Short version, pipes of different widths have waves pushing air out of them, producing a note, a bit like a normal organ, except more atonal and generally haunting your soul. I mean, it's kind of cool. If you figured out by now, this thing has no on-off button. I don't know what it's like to live and run a business within earshot of this, but yeah, that would take some getting used to. Jen had been wanting to take a swim all day, so we attempted to walk to the beach, but it was quite a bit further than we anticipated, and with aching feet from a day of just walking constantly, we stopped off a bit sooner at the nearest stretch that vaguely constituted the beach. As rocky beaches go, this one was particularly tricky to walk on in bare feet, and as I was sitting, I looked closer at the beach. It was filled with what I can only assume are smashed roof tiles. I mean, come on, who does that? Who leaves roof tiles at a beach? But after a really hot day, it was lovely to have somewhere to be by the water. And I should say, if you walk further down the coast, you will eventually come to some slightly better beaches. But it had been a long day, so we didn't want to walk another half an hour. It was getting close to sunset, and I wanted to get the best view, so quite happily paid another $1.50 and shot up the bell tower again, just in time to catch the show. And, well, wow. It was kind of crowded. I mean, I wasn't exactly the first to have this idea, but incredible to see. It was a real treat. We took a little while longer just sitting by the water and taking in the dusk. There was a nice buzz. There's lots of families and young children, interestingly. I don't know what it is about Zadar specifically. We didn't see anywhere near this number of young families in the other cities, but yeah, Zadar does seem reasonably well set up for kids. Oh, and hey, look, saw a boat pass under the bridge, so it is possible, I guess. Just. The colours from the bridge were otherworldly that evening, and for a first day, yeah, this all just felt amazing. So, up nice and early. I'd sort of predicted this, but with the buildings along the waterfront, plus the mountains in the distance, you're going to struggle to see the very first rays of sun rise above the horizon. But hey, just getting to see the city before anyone else is quite an experience. And for a lot of photographers, or just eager folks who are sick of having to crane their camera around the crowds, getting an early start in Croatia is a pretty standard plan, especially when we eventually get to Dubrovnik, for example. A lot of the picture spots will be jammed with people after 8 or 9 a.m. You want the perfect snaps, get up about 5 or 6 in the morning. Well, it's not so much of a necessity in Zadar. 5 a.m. starts are pretty much business as usual when we're on holiday. And stop looking at me like that. Yes, it is 100% worth it. I got a few more shots of the cathedral. I'd inexplicably completely missed this facade the previous day. Also more of the Forum Square while it was empty. I'd also gone the previous day with scarcely a proper cup of coffee, so these mornings are the best time to road test the local Joe. There's not super loads of outlets in Zadar, but this spot was quite highly rated. I'd heard reviews gushing about this place, so took a seat, and then out came, oh, well, it's another Illy espresso. I'm not complaining, it's a perfectly good shot, it just doesn't seem like there's much point saying much about it. So, yeah, all in all, like nothing that really leapt out, but like a good selection there. Now, that's a bit brief, but that's most of Zadar covered. Not long after breakfast, we were on our way to the next stop. For the next episode, we're in Šibenik, which was a really incredible place that even fewer people are aware of than Zadar. So check back for that soon. By the way, I've put together a playlist for all our episodes from the Balkans, as well as these Croatia videos. We've also got some shorter episodes from our trips to Albania, Bosnia and Montenegro. This is why I hate how big our episode backlog is. There are so many more episodes that can go in this, as well as all the Croatian Adriatic. We mentioned our first time in Slovenia last episode. We've since been to a lot more of Bosnia and Montenegro as well. And at time of writing, we're about to head to Bulgaria for the first time. So there's a lot that's going to go in there. I also opted to put the Thessaloniki episode in there, as it's in the north of Greece, but it seemed kind of redundant also dumping all of the Greek episodes in there too. We have a separate playlist for those, so yeah, definitely check all of that out. By the way, we recently went past 1,000 subs, which, look, I know is chicken feed as far as YouTube is concerned, but it's taken us a while to build an audience, so it feels like a significant milestone. We're going to have a channel update of sorts soon. Thank you for everyone who supported us. It really means everything. Hitting all of the YouTube buttons and particularly leaving a comment makes a lot of difference. If you've been enjoying the music in the background, we create all the music on the channel and you can purchase it on bandcamp.com. If you want to support us, that's the place to do it. The Adriatic EP, which accompanies this series, is either coming very soon or out now, whichever is true at time of release. Otherwise, we'll be back very soon.